Hi there. I've just been working with one of my all-time favorite patterns, the I-Ching, which can be a jacket or a vest. I know some of you have been making this. I've seen some great garments, and I'm loving it as well. I've just finished making this one out of the kantha, this kind of cinnamon colored kantha, which is cream colored on the inside. I just really wanted kind of a transitional jacket that I could wear and maybe wear kind of like a heavy shirt, not take it off all the time like a big coat, so that I could, get more use out of it as the spring comes on. I've added one other fabric. You can see the printed commercial fabric that I've used as a binding at the neck edge, and I've also used that same fabric as a binding in some places, and then you can see I've used it as a bigger facing on this side of the jacket in this photo. When you're using commercial pieces like this throw, it has a finished edge. So I really want to spend some time looking at what the options are and what I might use and what it came with. So you can see as I've got this one edge folded over, it's got kind of a nice stitched edge. That was on the original throw. So I thought, I like that. I want to use that whenever possible in a few places. I've also added my own stitching in that whip stitch to the tucks that are on the front of the garment pattern. And I've used that whip stitch in a couple of other places because that's a lot of open area, and I really wanted to see what else I could do with it. You can also fold the front over in either direction. So depending upon whether you fold the left or the right over, you get that edge with the tuck sticking out, or you get, that other edge on the front. This one right now doesn't have a closure on it because I like to wear the garments first for a while and see, what is it, if there's not an obvious place for a button or a tie, it's like, what's it going to feel like when I put it on? How am I going to wear it? Where do I want those things? When you buy a commercial piece, sometimes the buttons or the ties are in the wrong place, but since we're sewers, we know what to do about that. So in this next photo, notice I've added that whip stitching as I pieced the sleeve, and I've also used that edge that came on the original throw on the piece on the back where I've overlapped the garment to get that back piece big enough. I've also added the printed fabric as a fold back on the sleeve, and I really like playing with that and how is that going to work. So in addition, you could be using, oftentimes with kantha, I'm using both sides of the fabric because I like to make reversible garments. And in this case, I've just used that cream color on the inside to turn up in a few places just as a binding along the edge. I want to show you what I've done on the sleeve because it's a little different than in the pattern. So in the photo on the left, what I've done is that's the original cutout piece, but I've hemmed the piece without adding the sleeve. So I've just turned it back, hemmed it up, so it's basically like you would make the vest. And the black line is where you can see there's a little bit of stitching there, but I wanted you to see where that was in relationship to the opening. Because on the photo on the right, that's the original sleeve I've now set higher up on towards my shoulder. So instead of putting it on and seaming it where the sleeve was supposed to go, I have made the sleeve longer, determined how long the sleeve needs to be since I'm going to take some of the length to put it up higher on my arm, and then I've placed it higher and top stitched it and turned the edge back with a little bit of binding, and I've left the underarm open. Okay, what that means is because you're asking it to sit on the garment in a different place, it needs to be open there for this particular version. You could also add more fabric under there and have it come together a little bit more, but I do like the way it looks open. It's very Japanese, it's a little more architectural, and I think it adds interest to the garment. So moving on to the collars, the focus of this garment was I really wanted to make some accessories out of the collar pieces so that I would have more options about how I wore them. So I've got two collars I made. The larger collar has a commercial printed fabric by Marcia Durst. I love her design eye and her work. I just really love this piece. And so this piece is actually padded with some thinsulate, which is a very lightweight batting. So it's poofier. It's got a little more body to it. And then I've made these other shapes and put them on top. I've used some of the shapes on the back that were on the back, wrapped them to the front, and so that I have some more options about wearing. The smaller collar piece, I've added the printed fabric as a binding and cut some holes, added some ties, and show you more about where that actually went. So that smaller collar piece, as I was thinking about how that's going to work, this is one of the things that I do that works really well. I get the piece almost finished, and then you can see I pinned on loops and ties in various places. I put the collar on, and I put it on my dress form as well. And then I look at, well, how would I fasten this? Where do I need to have the fastener? Is it going to be more open? Can I have it an option so I could have it more open and I could have it more closed? How is that actually going to work? So I have a couple of different ways that I could actually wear the collar. And that is, again, that gives me more options when I'm going to put it on. The other thing that I do is, notice on this photo, I have a loop and a button at the back of the neck. None of that shows, which is great. So the button is on the inside of the jacket. It just holds that collar piece in place when I put it on, since it's a little smaller and potentially could slide around. So when you see it finished, it could ride on the garment like this, and you can see I put it on, and I actually made a few tucks because it just felt a little fat in the front. Or it could be worn off to the side, as in this next photo, which I really like the option that it kind of looks like a cowl, and it also looks like a regular collar. So let me show you the collar pieces again, so you kind of see the front and the back. So you can kind of see the combination of how I've used the fabrics, used the kantha, wrapped it around, cut the holes. And in both pieces, I like the holes because it gives me more options for threading other things through, maybe another small scarf piece, who knows, or maybe interacting with the garment in a slightly different way. Now, the coolest thing about this is on that bigger collar piece, that sort of triangular shape, you can see I've got those X's stitching it down in the middle. That's because that piece, and notice the shape that it is. So as we go to this next photo, check this out. Oh, this is one of the coolest things I ever figured out. I know I say that a lot, but this is truly awesome. So that button piece that I've labeled button, actually I've interfaced it with some sturdier interfacing that you might use for like a bag. So it's a little stiffer, that button piece. It's not fastened around the edge. It's only stitched with those little X's in the center, kind of like you'd sew on a button. That arrow shows you where that button piece goes through the square and actually holds the collar piece set. So that's the way it looks before you put it through, and then the photo on the right is what it looks like when the button is actually through the square and it's in a wearing position. I just think that is so awesome, and I know I will play with that idea a lot because it has so much potential. You know, when you do something and you think, oh, that's the tip of the iceberg, there is more to this. And that's definitely how I feel about this concept of this fabric piece going through the opening. So just to wind it up, here's the two garments, here's the two collar pieces. And remember, you can wear it without the collar piece at all. And maybe the shirt or the turtleneck underneath the jacket is enough. But I love that these are now accessories in my accessory wardrobe and could be worn over a great black coat or a sweater. And I feel like this is a great addition to my wardrobe.